They say when Wyatt Earp walked into a room, the temperature dropped 5 degrees and the whiskey got nervous. He wasn't the fastest gun in the West, but he might have been the coldest. He was a lawman, he was a gambler, saloon keeper, and a storyteller, and the occasional vigilante. If a man ever lived like a half-packed bowl of shag-cut mystery, it was Wyatt Barry Stapp Earp. You're listening to the Pine Grove Briar, where history smokes us slow and smooth, with a hint of a burley blend and just enough gunpowder to keep your boots on edge. I'm your host, and today we're setting a match to the myth of the Old West's most misunderstood mustache. And by the way, just as a side note, I had forgotten that Wyatt Earp had so many names. I'm going to have to do some investigation and a little digging on that Barry name. But anyway, Wyatt Earp, let me go back there. Wyatt Barry Stapp Earp was born in Monmouth, Illinois in 1848. Wyatt was the kind of kid who probably chewed on fence wire just to prove a point. By 21, he'd already been arrested for horse theft, skipped bail, and he allegedly spent time hauling freight for a brothel. That's right, the man who later enforced the law started his adult life breaking it like it owed him money. Wyatt wasn't so much a by-the-book lawman as he was the guy who wrote the book. Tore out a few pages, rolled them into a cigarette, and lit it with a smirk. And by the way, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, this is just kind of a side note, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a cowboy. Well, those were the days when kids were able to get out and play. Today's kids don't know what it's like. They wouldn't know what it's like. I remember as a kid playing like I was Wyatt Earp, like I was a cowboy. Matter of fact, the house I grew up in was a house trailer, and lived there till I was 12 years old. And if you know anything about a trailer, how they haul those trailers has a tongue on the end that hitches up to a tractor trailer. And me and my brothers, we would play like we were hauling cattle with that. And boy, we played cowboys and Indians, and man, we had us a big time. We thought we were something else. Those were the days when kids actually had to use their imagination. I'm not sure that too many kids today would even think of something like that. I don't know. But boy, those were simpler, much simpler times. I remember going outside. We'd be outside from daybreak to sundown, playing cowboys, and we'd make all kind of games up that we'd play. We'd ride horses, and well, we thought we were something. But anyway, that was kind of my I got off track there, but now I said last time that didn't cost you a dime. That's just my 2 cents. This episode. And by the way, I'm back to smoking Frank's Blend from the Gatlinburg tobacconist in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And boy, if you haven't been there, you should go there. If you like pipe smoking, if you like just the smell and the nostalgia of going into a tobacco store like that, It's like stepping back in time. And by the way, this episode, I want to also make mention of an awesome little bait shop in Oneida, Tennessee that will make custom plastics. And right now, until Memorial Day, if you tell them the Pine Grove Briar sent you, that will give you 10% off of your order. Just tell them the Pine Grove Briar sent you, and that's only till Memorial Day. Now let's get back to Wyatt Earp. And I'm going to get back to lighting my pipe. I remember my grandma used to say, light my pipe. Going to town, light my pipe, won't be back till next Saturday night. Again, that was simpler times. Back to Wyatt Earp. Now I'll try to keep my mind on track instead of getting off track. Now, in this part of the story, you might picture Wyatt Earp with a cigar. Hollywood sure did. And by the way, I've watched Tombstone twice in the last 2 days. I love that movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies. But I like to imagine Wyatt with a rough-hewn, frontier-style briar pipe. That's kind of how I'd like to picture Wyatt Earp. Something stained by trail dust and soaked in black Cavendish and chomped at a cocky angle while he dealt cards with one hand and sized up a gunfighter with the other. Tombstone, Arizona, 1881. You know what's coming. I'm going to relight this Frank's blend real quick. The gunfight at the OK Corral. Spoiler alert, it wasn't actually in the corral, and it only lasted about 30 seconds. And half the folks involved didn't really even know why they were shooting. But shoot, they did. When the dust settled, Wyatt walked away, coat smoldering, legend intact. That shootout's been told and retold so many times, it might as well be scripture in the Church of American Masculinity. I always loved to tell the story and hear the story of the shootout at the OK Corral. But here's the kicker. Wyatt wasn't even the sheriff. It was his brother Virgil. Wyatt was just there, as always. Lean, quiet, probably repacking his pipe, while chaos bloomed around him like tobacco in spring. You ever try to light a pipe in the middle of a bar fight? Wait, I've never been in a bar fight. Let me take that back. So neither have I. But I like to think Wyatt Earp could have pulled it off. Strike a match on his boot heel, tamp it down with the butt of his Colt, take one long puff and mutter, "Gentlemen, let's keep this civil." After the gunfight, things got, well, personal. Morgan, Wyatt's brother, was murdered. Virgil got ambushed. Wyatt dropped the badge and picked up a shotgun. What followed was what historians politely call the Earp Vendetta ride. But we might better describe it as Wyatt's Wild West Wrath tour. He hunted down his brother's killers one by one with Judge Dredd level confidence and none of the due process. Justice, frontier style. Hot, quick, and mostly unapproved by committees. And this is where the pipe comes in handy. Because after a day of chasing vengeance through mesquite and blood, a man needs something to sit down with. Something slow. Something he can contemplate with. Something that doesn't answer back. That's pipe smoking for you. You may not be a pipe smoker, but I enjoy it. It don't fix a thing. It's not solving the world's problems. But it gives you space to realize what needs fixing. In his later years, Wyatt did what any aging gunslinger does when the horses stop running. He moved to California and tried to sell his story. He became a fixture in early Hollywood, chumming up with silent film stars and dropping enough anecdotes to fill 3 dime novels and a bottle of rye whiskey. One actor said Wyatt had the eyes of a man who'd seen too much and decided not to blink again. He never smoked on screen, but maybe he should have. A pipe might have grounded him. I imagine him on a California porch, pipe between his teeth, telling some young producer how he definitely shot first and absolutely hit what he was aiming at. Was it true? That's between Wyatt and the mesquite wind. Wyatt Earp was a man who wore many hats, figuratively and literally. But what he wore best was ambiguity. He was a lawman with no love for rules, a vigilante with a badge, and a legend who maybe wrote more of his myth than we care to admit. And like any good pipe, he burned slow, left a lasting scent, and was harder to handle than he looked. As I said last episode, we're still trying to get this Pine Grove Briar podcast down to a science. We're still looking for content, and we'll get this format right. But I thought about Wyatt Earp, and man, I know with all the recent things that have happened, Val Kilmer passing away and all that, just made me want to watch Tombstone again. But Wyatt Earp, man, I remember an Andy Griffith episode where Clarence Earp, this was one of the color episodes, so it kind of is out of my comfort zone of Andy Griffith shows, but this was one of my favorite color episodes. It was shot in color, the show was on for 5 years in black and white, and then they switched over to color, which kind of took something away from the whole thing. But anyway, we'll get into Andy Griffith. Maybe that'll be the next episode. Anyway, so Fred Gibson, the character in the show, comes to town with a kid, so he said, who was supposedly Wyatt Earp's great nephew, Clarence Earp. And they said he was the roughest boy. He could wrestle in what we used to call wrestling. He could wrestle and he could shoot a gun, and their whole mantra was, the man who can fight is the man who is right. But anyway, those boys on the show, they loved playing cowboys, and boy, they were shooting it up and everything. But who doesn't as a kid, at least up until the last few years, as a kid, want to be a cowboy like Wyatt Earp, be a lawman and have a gunfight at the OK Corral? Man, that was awesome. Anyway, that's our episode for today. I thank you for joining me here on the Pine Grove Briar. So until next time, keep your powder dry, your pipe lit, and remember, sometimes the best way to find the truth is to sit down, light up, and let the smoke do the talking. See y'all next time.